どうかな？切れてないかな？どうでしょう？どうでしょうか？問題ないかな？大丈夫っぽいね。あ、はい。OK。
スイッチにて待機。
はい。スイッチの方で、これでこうして、画面をキャプチャー、こう。で、こうして、Chrome キャプチャーの音声も入ってる。OK。音楽でも流し。しばし待機。パスタ茹でてこようかな。とりあえず、ラダペとスロットルとフライトスティックは邪魔なので、お片付け。よいしょ。だって待機中はこれちょっとどけとくか。よし。そういうわけで、ちょっとレンチンしてこよう、麺を。 もう外が明るいんですけど。はいで。外がもう明るいですね。あ、やべ。ちょっと待って。よく考えたらこれ、チャットの URL が変わってる。こうだ。こうだ。デコさんおはようございます。ウェドネスさんいらっしゃいませ。ルイドないっぽいって話だよね。一応変更点こんな感じだけど。あと1分半。お湯沸いた。もう一回レンジ行ってくる。すぐかな。あと23秒。まあ最初は多分トレーラームービーから始まるよね。一旦変更点消しましょう。
新武機種は来てほしいところだがさて、
武器はあれだね。
And welcome to GGG Live. Today we're going to show you an exclusive reveal of what's coming next for Path of Exile 2. Twitch drops are enabled on today's live stream, so you'll be able to claim your Sun Priest's Incineration rare finisher effect by following the instructions below. Now with that out of the way, let's get started. It's time to give you a teaser of what's coming in Path of Exile 2, the Third Edict.
I have called you here to save our people, to save our way. Over the ages, we have known pain like no other, but we endured, and we became mighty. Now, outsiders dishonor our shores, and we have stood by, doing nothing. Hear my voice, ancestors! Show us your strength! Show us the true way! I
この人がここかな。
こんばんは。
きともんちゃんさんこんばんは。キモ。キングスマンチ。
早くやらせてくれ。もう我慢できないんだ。
やっぱアクト4だね。でミニアクト、リーク通り。まあリーク通りっすね。 ニュートレードシステム。and introducing アビスか。これは。Rise of the Abyssal。これが今回のリーグ要素かな。うん。まあやはりリーク通りですね、この辺は。
As you can see, there's a lot going on, and we have a lot to reveal today. We'll start by going over Act 4, the next chapter in the Path of Exile 2 storyline. But that's not all. There's also 3 new interlude acts to get you to Endgame, which means we're removing cruel difficulty too. After that, we'll be going through the massive changes to characters. I'm super excited to show you how I've overhauled the entire support gem system, added new skills, and yes, there are buffs. Next, we'll go over the Rise of the Abyssal, the season's exclusive league mechanic, and talk about the new rewards, crafting systems, areas, and bosses that it adds.
New crafting
After
system.
that, it's on to changes we're making to the endgame. Then it's time to talk about items, crafting, and oh yeah, trade. That's going to be a big one. We'll then go over our new supporter packs.
非同期トレード。
With a live Q&A session where Ziggy D will ask Path of Exile 2's game directors, myself and Mark, your questions from Twitch chat. And after that, at 4 p.m. Pacific, hatch notes. They're not quite complete, but they should give you some nice details to chew on. We've got a lot to cover today, but first, another announcement. When the third edict launches on the 29th, we'll be having a free weekend for Path of Exile 2. That's right, Path of Exile 2 will be free for the first time without requiring an early access key. The free weekend will end on September the 1st, so you'll have plenty of time to give the game a try. Alright, let's get started with Act 4. The story continues from the end of Act 3. Doyani has agreed to help you find an ancient weapon that can be used against corruption, the instrument of the Third Edict. The weapon was broken in ages past, but he believes that the pieces may be found in the Karui archipelago, the home of the Karui tribes. You will need to journey to Kingsmarch, hire a ship, and set sail. When you open the map, you can choose to sail anywhere you like. Act 4 is completely non-linear, and you can visit the islands in any order you choose.
ノンリニアで自由に
Will you visit
行
the
き先を選べ
pristine
る。
beaches of Whakapanu Island? The Karui whisper of a curse that afflicts all who travel there. Perhaps it's related to the weapon you seek. Or maybe you will visit the volcanic shores of the Isle of Kin. The Kin have been more restless recently, mining for sulfite and driven by some dark force.
サルファイトを掘ってる。
Perhaps you will choose to consult with one of the local Karui tribes. Their ancient wisdom could hold clues to finding the Third Edict.
リターントゥシップっていうボタンが左にあったな、今。
Fight dangerous beasts. Find fabulous treasures.
螺旋に広がる新スキル
And battle incredible bosses.
A challenger! Come,
トータだ。
seize your soul!
えモバじゃなくなって
8
る。
islands to discover, each teeming with its own flora and fauna. Act 4 contains over 100 new monster types, 16 new areas, 12 new bosses, and plenty of other interesting encounters. There's a huge amount to show, but we're not going to spoil too much here. We want to give you a chance to discover it all for yourself. What happens after Act 4? Well, until now you had to repeat the entire campaign again before you could face the endgame. But after adding Act 4, the game is far too long to make you do that. We needed something else to do in between the end of Act 4 and the endgame. So what else could we do? Add 3 new mini-acts, of course, and we're calling them the Interludes. The Interludes are a set of 3 temporary side stories that will be included in the game until Act 5 is released.
なんか
That
い
will
ろい
take
ろ
you to
違う
level
な
65 where the endgame can begin. The first interlude sends you on a journey back to Ogham. Renly has been leading the efforts to rebuild Ogham village after the defeat of Count Geonor, but there's a new danger afoot. The nearby town of Holton is surrounded by an impenetrable darkness, and each night their corrupted townfolk emerge to raid the local farmlands. You will discover new areas and new bosses. You'll need to find your way through the darkness, uncover the source of corruption,
Soon you will serve our master.
レイス
And
楽し
defeat
そう
it.
じゃん。
Yes, I shall dance with their corpse.
And that's just the first interlude.
なるほど。
The second interlude will have you return to the Vasteri desert where Asala has been given a sacred duty. When the skies align, the gifting of water requires a chosen Sekima to meet with the Selkari, guardians of the sacred water, but they're nowhere to be found. You will need to
やべ、
track
レン
down the
チンが終わったから
Selkari,
持ってこねえと。
find those responsible for disrupting the gifting, fight even more new bosses, discover the secrets of the ancient ritual, discover new locations, and ultimately help Asala carry out her sacred duty. Now for Interlude 3. As Royal Thaumaturge of the Vaal, Doyani had plans within plans to save his people from the cataclysm perpetuated by Atzeri's lust for power. One such plan involved sealing a group of willing Vaal deep in a great mountain vault near the home of the Asmeri, deep enough to survive the cataclysm. Even though thousands of years have passed, he believes that their descendants may still live, and may be key to defeating the beast. The journey up the mountain will be dangerous. New foes stand in your way. And the further up the mountain you venture, the colder it will become. Explore caves of ice and enter the vault itself. Who can say what you will find within? The interludes are 6 to 7 areas each and generally include 4 boss fights as well. When you put that together with Act 4, that adds up to 35 new areas in the campaign and 24 new bosses. It's worth making clear that the interludes are temporary. When Act 5 and 6 are added, the interludes will be going away. These are side stories after all, but don't worry, the bosses and areas that make up the interlude are all part of the endgame. We're not just going to throw them away. And with that, we don't need cruel difficulty anymore. We do know that it was a pretty big chore to have to play through the campaign multiple times on each character, and this was a huge reason that the campaign could feel like a bit of a slog when playing through again. But we do also have another new feature to address that particular concern as well. So let's talk about sprinting. In 030, when you hold down the dodge roll button, your character will go into a sprint after they finish the roll. This is available on all character classes, and there's no limitation on how long you can sprint for. The primary purpose of this feature is to make navigating areas faster when out of combat. Because of that, if you do take a hit while sprinting, you'll fall to the ground. The best idea is to use a skill when you see monsters. That'll break you out of the sprint so you can engage with no danger. If you do need to run away from monsters, just hold spacebar. You won't be vulnerable during the roll, and you're faster while sprinting than basically any monster in the game, allowing you to retreat from combat. Sprint is a pretty significant change to PoE2's gameplay.
こうした方がいい
What I
か。
like most about it is that we can accelerate the pace of the game for those who want that, without having to compromise
ま
on
あ、スプリン
PoE2's
トは
visceral combat system.
意外と速いな。でも
Okay,
元のベースムーブメントスピードがどんぐらいだったのかね、今のキャラ
There's a whole
ね
giant。league to play through as well. I'll leave that to Mark to talk about later. And that's because what I want to talk about now is the new stuff for your characters. And probably one of the biggest new systems here is with the support gems. Now, support gems are one of the most interesting elements to creating a build. They're what enables so many interesting mechanics and different ways to play. But PoE2's support gem system has just never been quite right. One of the major issues is the limitation of only having one support gem of each type on your character. We didn't want builds to just become using the same 5 most powerful supports in every skill. The problem with this design, though, is that it's actually working against using multiple skills in your build. If you can only use each support gem on one skill, it means that you're encouraged to go all in on that one ability. And we want to encourage you to combo your abilities, something needed to change. So with that in mind, we've removed the restriction of having one of each support gem per character. You can now use as many copies as you like.
うん、
This should
まあ普通
drastically
に
increase the amount of possible builds
個数制限
and
撤
increase
廃
the amount
ね
of。skill diversity. There are a lot of potential builds that suffered from the previous restriction. For example, a poison build previously couldn't add poison to more than one skill. They couldn't use stacking poison on more than one skill either. This severely limited your ability to combo with anything outside of the specifically designed poison archetype, but now you can. Many utility skills previously couldn't scale to endgame, because the supports that would make them scale were more useful to use in other skills. You would never speed up killing Palm with martial tempo, when you would much rather use it on your primary skill instead. There are more examples like this all over the place. In addition to that, though, we thought there wasn't enough feeling of progression
う
in the supports as
ん、
we went
まあ
through the
これ
game.
もね、
There were only 3
事前の
tiers
情
of
報通りだ
supports,
な。
and many of
ティ
the
ア
most
5まで。
important ones were given out at tier 1. Also, there were no strict upgrades, meaning that upgrading supports when you ran out of sockets required quite a lot of thinking. In order to solve these issues, we now also have multiple levels of many supports as you go through the game. For example, double barrel support gives you an extra bolt, but at the cost of 30% less reload speed. At tier 2, the penalty gets lowered to 20%. But then at tier 3, the support gem gets something new. It now reloads automatically when you heavy stun an enemy. In some cases, the highest tiers might work a little differently, and you'll have to decide if you like the upgrade or not, depending on your build. For example, rapid casting. The first couple of levels gives 15, then 20% increased cast speed. But then at tier 3, it changes to a new approach. For each different spell you cast in the last 8 seconds, you get 10% increased cast speed, which could be a pretty big bonus if you use a lot of different spells. So that's pretty good for upgrades through the campaign, but we wanted to add a little more spice to the endgame for supports too. And that's where our new system, lineage supports, comes in. You can think of these like unique items, but for supports. There are supports that are only available at endgame, but they're much more powerful. Like Ratha's Assault. It's an upgraded version of Double Barrel that reloads your skill as you
これ
dodge,
からだね。
as well as increasing the number of bolts it can hold. But it does mean
さっき
that's
出てた
the
やつ
only
だ。
way you can reload the skill now. Now, unlike regular supports, you can't find these through the uncut support gem. Just like unique items,
で、これクールダウン
these can be found from
なぜか
specific
5秒
bosses.
という。
And there's a ton in the regular drop pool too. Some of them are fairly rare.
まあこれは間違いなく高いよな。
Some of them are build defining. Others are just straight up power upgrades. All in all, there's around 40 lineage supports being added throughout the endgame, so there's a lot of power to find out there. Now, the new support gems are certainly going to open up a lot of builds, but of course we have a huge range of improvements to individual character classes as well. As well as adding new skills, we had a big focus on buffing existing skills so that they can scale well into the endgame. There's a huge amount to cover here, so we're not going to discuss everything. We're just going to quick fire through some of the coolest changes.
相変わらずジョナサン早口だな。
A useful element on the Ranger, so we've expanded the cold tools available. As well as increasing its range, Escape Shot now creates fragments of ice whenever it hits the ground. These fragments
ああ、
explode
なるほど
after a
ね。
short time,
地面に
making the
残
skill
っ
better
て
for in groups of enemies.
範囲ダメージ与えた後に
But not only that,
炸裂す
we
るの
added
か。
an ice fragment support that creates more of them when killing frozen enemies. And a new buff skill called Ice Tipped Arrows that allows all your arrows to create
あ
ice
あ、
fragments.
これだね。ああ、フラグメント飛んでくんじゃなくて残って破裂すんのか。
But to take further advantage of the ice fragments, Freezing Salvo has been upgraded to shoot additional cold arrows towards every fragment, giving you a nuke-like ability.
なるほどね。
Also modified Snipe to consume frozen from enemies, dealing a huge amount more damage, giving you a nice ice single target option. And something you might notice about this is that the bonus is a lot higher against bosses. This is actually a change you'll see throughout the entire game. Since it's a lot harder to freeze a boss, you should get a bigger reward for it.
はあ、なるほど。
Another theme you'll see throughout the game is making movement feel better.
めっちゃアクショ
Toxic
ンゲ
Growth
ー
is
に
a
見
skill
え
that
る
was pretty cool, but a bit annoying to use with the jump that it had. Now Toxic Growth is a range
まあ
skill, so you can spam
氷
it more easily.
どうなんだろうな。
And we've also added a new poison skill while we were at it, called Toxic Domain. It creates a small area around you that makes all your attacks create toxic growth pustules, but attached to monsters. Another skill that was annoying to use was Electrocuting Arrow. It's now just a regular arrow, making it easier to use. But it also means you can support it with projectile supports. And it now also has Area of Effect, making it a tool for more than just single target, and allowing it to scale into the endgame. We also added a new spirit reservation called Mirage Archer. This is a meta skill that allows you
ミ
to
ラー
collect
ジャーじゃそ
shadowy
この
clones
その場に
of
残るんだこれ。ドッジロールした場所に。そういうこと。
Of course, one of the other big
Mirage
problems the Ranger had was
Archer, こうなるのか。
survivability. Evasion was the weakest of the 3 defenses, and we wanted to change that. Currently, evasion doesn't evade all types of hits in the game, so you're still vulnerable to things like slams or unblockable attacks. To make evasion characters more tanky, we're adding a new mechanic called Deflect.
頭につけてくれないと
Unlike evasion, Deflect works on everything. And if you successfully deflect
デフレクトスラムにも効くんだ、やっぱり。
items can now give you a mod that gives you some amount of deflection based on your evasion. And there's a bunch of it available on the passive tree too. Deflection is rolled in addition to evasion, so this is an upgrade for regular hits too. and unlike evasion, there's no maximum chance.
デフレクティングレーティン
100%
グ
deflect against all hits if you spec into it enough. Of course, this is a buff that helps all Dex characters, so the Mercenary and the Monk, but especially the Huntress, are seeing big defense boosts from this as well. Speaking of defensive mechanics, let's talk about block and parry. Now, one of the big concerns on the release of the Huntress was parry feeling unreliable. One of the big reasons for this is there's a lot of hits that are not blockable, and thus not parryable either. So a huge balance change we're making is that now, everything is blockable, except for specifically unblockable red flash skills that bosses use. This makes parry much more reliable. And not only that, but to make block and parry nicer to use, you now also move faster than before while using these abilities. This is a massive buff to passive block as well. So to counter that, we did have to lower the max passive block a bit, but overall you should feel much safer. Fire skills on the warrior were not really cutting the mustard, so we decided we needed to upgrade a bunch of them, but also add some more as well. Let's start with a buff. Volcanic Fissure now branches into multiple fissures, giving it much more clearing potential. We've also added a new skill called Forge Hammer.
これがニュースキルか、
This skill
フォージハン
throws a
マー。
molten hammer that does a
戻ってきた。
slight distance. You can recall the hammer back by using the skill again if you like, but the cooler thing to do is to use a Warcry near it. Using a Warcry makes the hammer explode, making a bunch of volcanic fissures around.
マイティーそう。
Volcanic fissures re-trigger when you slam them, so it's a great skill to make a flaming arena to fight a boss.
かっこいい。
We also buffed Perfect Strike to have much larger area of effect, and changed Molten Blast to not always force you to move forward. Trust me, it feels a lot better to use now. The skill now has massively boosted chance to ignite monsters as well. And you're going to want to ignite monsters due to a new glory skill called Ancestral Cry. Ancestral Cry charges up with glory by igniting monsters, invoking King Kaum's favor. After you do, use it to channel Kaum's ancestral power. Every
good.
attack will be ancestrally boosted with fire. Your very steps will explode, triggering volcanic fissures. And multiple
すごい、これは。
your attacks.
派手だね。で、シルちゃんのこれクールダウンがなくなったってのがいいね。
Now that we've got sprint, we actually don't need to have a cooldown on shield charge anymore. And now also does more damage the further away you are when you use it.
クールダウンなしまじか。
うん。
Shield will got significantly upgraded. Also, you can shield charge right through it to trigger all walls. We also added a new shield wall cry. Fortifying Cry gives you a defensive buff, but it also builds up charge on your shield that empowers your other shield skills. And Magma Barrier now doesn't require timing in order to use. Just wait for your shield to charge up and block. Seismic Cry now stuns enemies that are primed for stun. And we changed the Sunder interaction with Armor Break. It now also gives a Sundered Armor debuff that makes enemies take 40% extra physical damage. Great for bosses. Ancestral Warrior Totem has undergone some pretty significant changes too. We wanted the skill to feel more like using an ultimate. That summoning an ancestor to fight for you was a big deal. So we've changed this totem to require 3 endurance charges to summon, and massively buffed its damage. It also now scales with your weapon damage too. Since there's no limit anymore, if you build around generating endurance charges, you can summon an entire
懐
forest.
かしのアンセストラルウォーリアトーテムだ。
In order to make that easier, we added some new sources of endurance charges. There's now a support to make Perfect Strike generate charges, and a support for generating endurance charges from heavy stuns as well. Speaking of totems, we wanted to upgrade the Warbringer. Among the other changes we've made to this class, Answered Call now gives an extra totem, and the spirits have just been generally buffed in many ways. Use it with your limitless ancestral warrior forest to make an army of Karui that would make Tukahama proud. We've also merged the Great Wolf Howl and Warcaller's Bellow support, so that you can get all the benefits with 1 point. And Encased in Jade no longer removes the Jade when getting hit, making it a much better defense. Next up, let's talk about accuracy. Accuracy was always intended to be something that warriors didn't need to care about very much so long as they're in close combat. But unfortunately, that's not currently the case. This was particularly annoying with skills like Bone Shatter, which you certainly don't want to mess with. So we significantly buffed your chance to hit at close ranges when you don't have much accuracy. Warriors shouldn't require any accuracy investment in order to hit with close range attacks now. We also wanted to improve armor. Now, one of the major weaknesses of armor is the inability to defend against elemental damage. In order to mitigate this, we're adding a lot more of the stat that allows your armor to defend against elemental damage. It's now available on items and in a lot more places on the passive tree. One of the most important improvements we've made in 030 is to declunk the action and flow of shooting crossbows. You can now reload crossbows without any movement penalty. But not only that, all skills that can be used while moving now slow you for a shorter amount of time. This change benefits everyone, not just crossbow skills. With both of these changes put together, the run and gun playstyle feels much better.
リロードで移動
It's
速
hard
度
to
低下
explain
がな
how
くなった
important
と
this
か
change is for the feel of the class. The Mercenary is also a good chance to talk about how we're rebalancing to make comboing skills much better. Take Shock for example. It buffs damage and lasts 4 seconds right now, but that isn't really giving you enough time to take advantage of it. If you're going to add a lightning skill into a build that otherwise wouldn't use one, we need to make mechanics like this much better. So we've increased shock duration on monsters to last 8 seconds. And skills like Plasma Blast, which are intended to be good at shocking enemies, now increase the damage bonus by a lot more. You'll find changes like this all around the game. Chill now lasts 8 seconds, giving you more of a reason to weave in cold damage. Freezing skills are better at freezing. Burning skills need to cause burns that last longer. But making skills like Permafrost Bolts and Incendiary Shot double down on how they're supposed to be used, it makes using them in your build alongside other skills much more likely. We're also making sure to buff specific combos too. The freeze explosions from frag rounds now chain to nearby enemies. And using high velocity rounds with armor break will now fragment the opponent's armor. This causes monsters to take a portion of high velocity rounds damage with every subsequent hit, even tiny pellets. So that means following it with a shotgun blast is way more effective. Now there's a lot more buffs to crossbow skills, but for now I'm just going to talk about the new one we added, the Mortar Cannon. This one lets you socket any grenade skill, and using it will summon a cannon which loads and then fires the grenade you choose. Another issue on the Mercenary were banners. They were just not very good, so we're doing a big upgrade to them. They now last longer, don't disappear when moving out of them, and we removed the Valor mechanic. They now just give a much more consistent and stronger buff, and you can use them when you get enough glory. On which, one of the main focuses was making various minion types more useful to use together. Melee minions in particular were just not that great compared to ranged ones. As a starting point, we just straight up removed the requirement for minions to have accuracy. Attack minions now always hit, which makes them way better. Brutes got some good numeric buffs, but we also added a new command skill where they do a war cry that intimidates enemies and detonates any frozen monsters and allies around you in a big cold explosion. We've also changed the Frost Mage's command skill to an ability that adds ice armor to your other minions, adding a layer of defense. And it makes them deal cold damage back to the attacker as well. The ice armor also makes the minion count as frozen, so the Brute's Warcry can detonate them too. Unearth was changed to work on corpses of your dead skeletons, allowing you to summon the minions more easily in boss fights. And they also got a new jump ability, allowing them to get into combat faster. Ray's Spectre was also feeling pretty weak for the spirit cost they have. To be honest, we were a little afraid of these when we first balanced them. We've both decreased the spirit cost for a large range of monsters, and have significantly increased Spectre damage too. They should feel a lot more impactful. There's also a lot of new spellcaster weapons with newer cult skills, but I'll just talk about one of them that I thought was particularly cool. The Reaping Staff is actually a wicked scythe that gives you a new ability called Reap. When an enemy is low in life, you can dash forward and rake enemies with the scythe to cull them instantly, healing you. It can also inflict critical weakness on enemies too.
ミュートになってた。
Now, there's a lot of balance changes in the Witcher's Ascendancy classes, but I'll just talk about 2 of them for now. On the Blood Mage, you were previously required to spend your first points on Sangromancy, which really was supposed to be the downside for being able to access the powerful abilities on the rest of the class. In order to make picking the Blood Mage a better early option, we've made Sangromancy free, unlocking the power of the rest of the class immediately. On the Infernalist, the Demon form wasn't something people were really using because you lost your weapon stats while transformed. Well, you no longer do, so it's a much better option now. On the Monk, the Wind skills needed a big upgrade for sure. Staggering Palm can now stack up its duration if you use the skill multiple times in a row, so you can keep the effect of all your skills throwing up wind much more easily. Wind Blast had the purpose of building up to dazing an enemy, but dazing just wasn't worth all that effort. Now it just dazes on hit, meaning a single Wind Blast will make all your skills stun enemies more easily. Following
Daze.
up with vaulting impact on a dazed enemy previously did a bunch of stun. Now it allows you to break your enemy's stance. When their stance is broken, following up with a fast attack will do way more damage. A cool build that certain people always enjoyed in PoE1 was hand-to-hand combat, but until now we just didn't have a real way to make it viable. Well, that changes now. The monk, as a true martial artist, now has the ability to learn the hollow palm technique, a keystone that lets you use all quarterstaff skills while unarmed.
素手ビルド
All
か。
quarterstaff attacks now have a special unarmed version, and you get further bonuses to all your attacks from stacking energy shield and evasion on your character. A new keystone we also added to the monk section of the tree is Walker of the Wilds. This changes mana leech to work with elemental damage instead of physical,
素でやり
which is
たいわ
pretty useful for all those elemental attacks the monk has, but it works well for the
やっぱ
ranged.
文句の素手はいいよね。
Now, one of the least used Ascendancy classes in the game is the Acolyte of Chayula, so we knew we needed to make some changes here. One of the key things we had to do was make the chaos damage that the Acolyte can do much more useful. So we've added a new skill, allowing chaos damage to ignite, shock, chill, and freeze, embracing the elemental prowess of the monk in a truly chaotic fashion. In addition, he can make all of his chaos damage leech. And we've buffed into the breach to embrace the darkness by moving the effects of the 4-point nodes into
短い
the
短い。
skills.
読めない読めない。
He also gains a new notable, Grasp of the Void, which leaves void illusions behind you as you dodge roll. If they're killed, they do massive explosions of darkness, dealing damage to
読み切れない。早い。早口だし早い。
Now let's talk about sorceress skills. One of the things we wanted to improve in the Sorc is the ability to use multiple elements together more effectively.
まあ、チャユラは大幅リワークって
This
こと
might
だ
seem
な。まあ、
small,
とりあえず。
but one of the things pointing towards using a single element is debuffs like elemental curses, which lower resistances of a single element. In order to fix that, we're making quite a lot of game-wide changes to these kinds of mechanics to broaden what they apply to. So for example, there's no longer 3 curses for fire, ice, and lightning. Instead, there's just a single curse that buffs all 3 at the same time. And things like Frost Bomb, which gave you cold exposure, now give elemental exposure. You can use it to buff any of your other skills. We also wanted to make switching between different weapon sets smoother, so you can use different elemental staves more effectively. To do that, we've removed the weapon switch time, and now happens instantly.
ウェポンスイッチ、インスタント。マジか。
Now we didn't just want to
あ
stop
まあ、
there.
当たり前なんだよ
We
な。
wanted to add some specific mechanics that work between different elements, and that's where elemental infusions come in. Certain skills can now drop elemental infusions. For example, when a frost bomb explodes, it leaves behind a cold infusion on the ground. After picking it up, you can spend it on one of any number of different skills to transform how they work. Spark will create a nova of cold infused projectiles. Ice Nova will leave a chilled area on the ground. And we also added a new low-level skill that fires ice shards. Use it with cold infusion though, and the ice shards will explode. Orb of Storms now generates lightning infusions when you cast enough spells near it. And that's all spells, by the way, not just lightning. Once you have one, you could cast a lightning flame wall, which adds both fire and lightning damage to all the projectiles that pass through it. Or power up Ember Fusillade with lightning, which will generate arcs to nearby enemies as each fireball hits. Or maybe go lightning on lightning with arc. This skill is now a projectile, and by infusing it, you can go full Palpatine. Get fire infusions by blowing up monsters with living bomb. Then use them with Comet to summon a giant fire meteor from the sky. Or use it with Firestorm, which transforms it from a small area into a much bigger one. Firestorm is unique in that it can be infused by multiple different elements at the same time. Add an ice infusion to rain down ice at the same time as the fire.
はあ。
And add lightning to add deadly strikes from the heavens into the mix.
インフュージョンして、
Or use it with all 3 to generate a storm that
お
is truly
お、山属性。かっこいい。
Cold Snap has been simply turned into Snap. Previously, you could use it to shatter ice, but now it works to detonate all of the different elemental ailments and makes them leave behind infusions. And just like how you could previously use it on Frostbolt, you can now also use it on Orb of Storms and Soul Orb to detonate those as well,
うん。
which means you can create many infusions at once.
すご
We
い。
also have a Spirit Reservation skill and a
Nino.
Support Gem to help generate them too. On the passive tree, we've added quite a few new keystones to the Sorceress section. Here are a couple of examples. The Black Flame Covenant keystone converts your fire spells to chaos and causes your ignites to
火
deal
が
chaos damage.
混沌ダメージに。
Your fire spells and ignites will also turn purple.
おお、紫色になってる
Ritual。Cadence keystone causes your invocation skills to trigger more times. It makes them trigger periodically over a longer duration instead of one. Great for those auto bomber builds. Now, in addition to skill changes, we've added a lot more options for the passive tree for each class. Overall, there are more than 100 new notables on the tree, usually around 20 per class, along with smaller clusters as well. Check out the old version. And here's the new
ああ、だいぶ増えたな。
more dense
20
and
クラス
more
ター。
interesting nodes than before. Now, we probably can't go through too many of these in the live stream, so I'll just show you one from each class's area of the tree. We tried to be a lot more thematic with the new nodes. So, for example, the Molten One's Gift. It lets the benefit of armor break apply to your fire damage. Or how about Last Stand, which gives you lots of stats as your situation becomes more and more desperate.
地味
A
だ
lot
な。
of these have themes aligning with Ascendancy classes. Like for the Gemling Legionnaire, for example. You have crystallized immunities, which makes you immune to different status ailments. depending on which
はあ、なるほ
supporting
ど。
color you have socketed the most. Another Ascendancy class aligned notable is Sanguimatic Rituals. It allows arcane surges to generate life instead of mana, unlocking that support gem to be used with the Blood Mage Ascendancy. In the Sork area, you'll find these Archon nodes that allow you to convert all of your elemental damage to a specific element. You become a Lightning Archon when you spend enough mana, after which all your skills will be converted to lightning, and you will do extra lightning damage as well.
マナ 100% のマナを使い尽くすと、使った状態になるとアーコンになる。アーコン状態になる
Practitioner
と。
gives crit bonuses if you've triggered a skill recently, while also making crits generate more energy for triggers. Or maybe you'd like the Great Boar. It gives you a reason to stack dexterity to make you tougher, giving a bonus to life and
ああ、
skill
これでいいね。4デックスごと
Or the
にライ
Cunning
フ1。
Fox. It straight up gives you 5% quality to all your gems.
強い。
Now, another major change is attribute requirements. We felt like players probably had a few too many nodes and attributes, and not enough in interesting passives.
ああ、そうそう。アトリビュートの制限がだいぶ緩やかになったって書いてあったな。
That means you'll have more points to spend on interesting notables rather than just needing to allocate more strength, dex, and int. Now, there are way more changes than just these. These are just some of the cooler ones we wanted to show off. But I'd say that's just about enough for now. We're not even half done yet. So I think it's time that we talk about the League, the Rise of the Abyssal. And to do that,
まあ、ミニオンね、攻撃が必中になったから、
As you just saw, even though there are major changes to the campaign for this update, we want to make sure that every time you come back for an expansion, each area feels different with something extra going on. It is really important to make sure your experience when returning between expansions is fresh and filled with new content. And the way we did this was through leagues. Every expansion we make has a league, which not only has a fresh economy, but also has new content exclusively available in that league. So, let's delve into the details of what Path of Exile 2's first official league is bringing to the table. The Abyssal are a race that have mastery of forbidden magics and necromancy. They were thought to be extinct, but have merely been biding their time underground. You first encounter signs of the Abyssal in Clairfell, where you discover that during the night, weaker members of the Undead Legion have been
クリア
attacking
フェル
the
からってことは、まあ、やっぱアクトの最初から
Townsfolk require
いけるんだ
your
ね。
help
入
to
るんだね。
investigate where the monsters are coming from and put a stop to their attacks.
モーティマー。これがリーグ NPC か。
As you proceed through Rayclast, you'll find fissures in the earth connected to larger pits. The monsters
Abyss だ
normally
ね。
inhabiting the area are being affected by it, harmed by it even, having their souls eaten to strengthen the Abyssal underground. As you defeat the monsters, the fissure closes and Abyssal emerge, angered by you killing their food. Once all those fissures have been sealed, the pit activates, and more Abyssal pour out. This is where the larger and more dangerous monsters reveal themselves, as hordes of Abyssal spew out from the pit to take your soul.
まあ、ここはポエ1
If
の
you kill a
アビ
magic
スと一緒だ
pack,
な。
then magic Abyssal arise. If you kill a rare, then a rare monster will emerge from the pit, having absorbed some or all of its modifiers for itself. This means the monsters emerging will generally be more difficult and more rewarding, as each modifier gives better rewards.
まあ、やっぱレアを殺すのがキーになってるの
If you
か。
are able to kill them all, the pit will seal shut. As each pit is closed, it reveals a potential reward. Abyssal troves will rise up out of the pits, allowing you to get some epic loot. Areas often contain many pits, with many fissures, and the amount goes up as you progress through the game, getting more intense. It doesn't stop there. When monster mods are absorbed, they have a chance to become infused with the dark necromancy, transforming them into abyssal modifiers. For example, you defeat this monster with the mana siphoner modifier. Their soul is eaten by the pit, and a rare monster emerges. The mana siphoner modifier has transformed into soul siphoner, and is now amplified in danger and reward.
なんか新しいモッド持ってそうなやつが。てかなんだ今の。
Abyssal pits also interact with other monsters and
まあでもやっぱりね、買って知ったるなんたるかの方がとっつきやすいからね、我々にとっては。
Lichborn exiles even have their own unique jewel they can drop, if you are lucky enough to encounter and kill them.
リッチボーン。
If an abyss spawns near a boss, killing it will summon a gigantic giga larvae creature.
おお、きっしょ。
Monsters imprisoned in essences near abyssal pits are affected by the abyss too. They will come with an additional new essence item that can be used to craft your
Essence of the Abyss.
So, that's your bread and butter of the Abyssal League. Kill surface-dwelling monsters, kill the emerging Abyssal, close the fissures, overcome pit encounters, and reap the rewards. There's a lot more to this league, however.
GGG、キモいの好きだからね。
You find ancient pieces of bone, preserved from the remains of fallen Lichborn. These are one of the many rewards for your mission to seal the
ジョーボーンとかさっきリブとかも出てたから骨だよね。
Use this on a rare item to imbue it with abyssal magic,
うん、別
adding
の
a
しか。
special hidden modifier to your item. But how do you reveal it?
ベールドモットか。
Act 2 of the campaign you'll
あの
encounter
骨
the
が
area.
さっきからなんか見たことないアイテ
This
ムが出てん
area
なと思ったら。
is overrun by the Abyssal and the Lost
そう
Men.
なるのか。
After clearing through this area, you'll find the Well of Souls, a giant cavity with a massive vortex of souls swirling beneath you.
ラーキングクリー
So
チャ
how do
ー。
you reveal the mods on your Abyssal infused items? Obviously, just throw them in, right?
リビルド。
That's exactly what you do. Before throwing it in, you are given the option of how you want to transform it, in the form of a choice of 3 different modifiers.
完全にベールドモット
Once
じゃん
you've。chosen your desired mod, throw it in, where it will absorb the power of the souls, and the ominous creature will then retrieve it for you.
投げ込んで、
These modifiers can be ones from the core mod
あれが持ってくんの
all the
ラ
way
ークド
through to specialized modifiers that cannot normally appear on
持
items.
ってきてくれんだ。かわいい
In
な
the。campaign,
キモいけどかわいい
use。it as a way to more easily add useful existing mods.
ああ、
During
な
the
るほど
endgame,
ね。
there is a whole set of new and powerful mods you can add to your items. Like this mod for crossbows that allows you to place an additional ballista totem.
汚ねえ
Or
泉の
this
女
one
神。
that adds spirit to your staff.
汚ねえ言わないの。かわいそうでしょ。
Or this one that allows you to generate more combo with your quarterstaff skills. And speaking of endgame, you can also use the system to craft waystones.
ウェイストーンにも
With a preserved
Ah,
vertebrae
debris.
fused into your waystones, you can get some new modifiers that push difficulty and rewards to new heights. Here are some examples of those mods. You always get a choice of 3, so you can avoid anything you don't think your character is capable of. With this modifier, the natural inhabitants of the area are all spawned near abysses. And there are up to 9 additional abyssal pits in the area.
アビサルマップ
making
っ
it
て
just
感じになるの
4
か、これ。
abyss ruckers.
ブラ
Or
イテッ
this
ドマッ
one,
プじゃないけ
which
ど。
causes the final abyssal pit in the area to always result in a boss encounter.
ああ、ボスに
It
リー
either
ドす
runs
る
underground
モ
or
ッド
one
が
that
つくことがあるん
emerges
だ
out.
ね。で、ダーク
There
ド
are
メイン。
dozens of these waystone modifiers in total you can get from this crafting. That covers the new crafting mechanic. So what's left? Well, we talked about how when closing pits you can get abyssal troves, but sometimes when closing an abyss, you'll reveal an underground cavern that leads to the abyssal depths. After jumping into the depths, you'll find an abyssal city, swarming with legions of the undead. When underground, every single rare abyssal enemy will have an abyssal modifier. And at the end of the dungeon, you'll even find a rare with a more powerful Lichborn modifier.
ああ、リッチ
Once
ボー
you're
ンがい
able
る
to
ね、こ
defeat
こに
this。powerful rare, you can also find some nice rewards. Aside from the entire area being valuable due to the abyssal modifiers on the monsters, it has its own specific drops too. One example is a set of lineage supports that can rarely be found in these depths, like Kurgle's Leash.
ハーグルズリーシ
This support empowers both you
ュ。あ
and your
あ、アン
minions,
ホーリーマイト。
granting unholy might to you both. Another depth-specific outcome is a set of omen-like items that amplify your abyssal crafting. Additionally, we're adding some new socketables that can drop from the abyssal depths. Take Ullaman's Gaze, which can be socketed into your armor. These are a bit special in that you can only have one equipped at a time, but give some pretty powerful effects. Think of them as almost a unique socketable for your equipment. In the endgame, where you can still find depths, you also start to find a different type of underground chamber. In these areas, you'll find an ancient spire, a device being used by commanders of the abyssal factions to plunge Rayclast into a lightless void. Your goal is simple: kill this commander and destroy the spire.
コマンダーが倒してスパイアを破壊しろ
There
と
are 4 bosses in the Abyss League, and there are some pretty cool
マッ
uniques
プかっ
available
て
from
ハ
them.
クスラ感がしまし。
An example is this belt, Darkness Enthroned. It has 2 sockets. But hold on, socketables don't work on belts. Well, this belt has a special mod that allows it to count as a different slot for the purpose of socketables.
ヘルメットの
This one, for example, counts as a helmet.
ヘルメットにソケットされたとしてカウントするのかこれ。
Wonder how rare that
で
one
しかも
is.
87% インクリースエフェク
You
ト。
can also find this
へ、
unique
強っ。
jewel, Undying Hate. This jewel transforms
タイムレスジュエルね。
into an abyssal version and has multiple depths.
つんよ。
The deeper it goes, the more of your passive tree is affected, allowing you to fulfill your fantasy of becoming part Abyssal Lich. Now, the last thing that Abyssal commanders can drop is a Finger of the Lich. But what use do you
これか、
have
クール
with
マ
a
ーク。
random undead finger? Well, the next time you return to the
ピナクル
Well
ボ
of
スね。
Souls, with the finger in your inventory, your character will almost feel compelled.
でもお
To
高い
do
んで
what
しょ
though, you might ask? To jump in.
高いんじゃない？
The items you threw in came back more powerful, right? So
クールマクインビテーション持った状態だとジャンプインができる
just
と、
have to
ここ
find
に。
that one out for yourself.
で、ピナクルボス、クールマクと戦ってくださいねと。
And the
ア
Interlude,
ビサルボスが4
we'll
匹い
be
るっつって
adding
たな。
25 new in-game maps. These maps will contain all the new monsters and bosses we're adding, improving variety and giving you opportunities to experience the new boss fights many times. Let's take a look at some examples. Rock Pools is a map where you explore a shallow rocky coastline surrounded by
ハスコラやめろ、ハスコラ。
filled with sirens. At the end is a giant goblin king boss,
アビス要素盛
ready
り
to eat
盛りだ
soul
な
fight
笑い。
and squish you like
ねえ。ジャイアントゴブリンキング。
Holton is an Ezomite township with
ホルテンはミニアクトのやつだ
Explore
ね。
and clear the township to find a gothic, reaper-like boss with the ability to manipulate storms and fry you with both lightning and wither you with chaos. Given some of the new bosses added are a bit more epic,
これがあ
such
る
as
か。
the act boss
ミニア
and
クト
final bosses of
3。
each interlude part, it would be a bit of a waste to just use them as regular map bosses.
これミニアクト1のやつかな。
Instead, we'll be adding some new mechanics to the Atlas that use them. These start appearing pretty fast into the endgame and will help bridge the gap until you do your pinnacle bosses. In the desert biome, you can encounter a wild sandstorm. 3 maps around the sandstorm contain a device you must activate. Upon doing this, the sandstorm's magic is disrupted, revealing the map inside and allowing you to access it and find the cause. This presents itself in the form of a boss, similar to the existing Citadel bosses. This boss is a Faradin Swordmaster, who has been blessed with the power of a
ハ
time
リデン
gem,
ソードマスターってことは
allowing
これ
him to take
ミ
his
ニアクト
swordsmanship
2の
to
ボ
the
スか。
next level by replicating himself,
アバンゴンが徹夜
maneuvering
してる。
rapidly, and severing
おはようござい
the
ます。
time itself with his powerful slashes. In the water biome, you'll encounter a giant maelstrom, where one of the maps surrounding the water biome connects to it, but the connection is obscured. You must run the maps nearby, hoping to find a beacon, which will remove the maelstrom and reveal the connection to that map. Another example is this Vaal vault in the mountain biome. But how do we get
アビス
inside?
追加されるの？
The
アビス
adjacent
追加
maps to it will yield a key, which you can then use to gain access to this vault. Or, you could just trade for one, I guess. Use the key to dispel the powerful force field surrounding it, leading to the Vaal Elite and their rewards inside. These all contain Uber versions of the Act 4 boss, and the bosses at the end of each part of the Interlude. And each have their own exclusive drop pool of new lineage supports, which, as Jonathan spoke about earlier, are powerful support gems that modify your skills in pretty crazy ways. As an example of a lineage support which can come from the
Garukan
Pharaoh
Resolve.
Sword Master mentioned earlier, we have Garukan's Resolve, which causes your critical strikes to fork, but requires some mobility on your part to properly enable. From the boss sealed in the Vaal Vault, we have Paquate's Pact, which supports your war cries, causing them to inflict massive amounts of corrupted blood at the cost of your own life. Additionally, some maps can now spawn summoning circles, a room
Summoning
resembling
circle.
an Ezomite henge. Activating this henge will spawn bosses. It's as simple as that. We'll also be making changes to how affixes and waystones work, as the current prefixes equals good, suffixes equals bad iteration isn't quite hitting the mark. We tried something new here in Path of Exile 2, but after seeing the feedback we decided we actually liked what we had in Path of Exile 1 more. Like Path of Exile 1, each affix will now be both difficult and rewarding. Waystone mods now grant an increase to the number of waystones dropped, and an additional specific upside attached to it. This means as you roll your map, they will continue to get more difficult and more rewarding, and allow you to
あ
customize the
あ、アフィックス
difficulty
1行を追加するごとにウェイストンドロップが上がるんだ。
For example, the Frostbitten mod, which causes enemies to deal cold damage, also increases the rarity of items dropped as its upside. Whereas the Of Venom suffix modifier, which causes enemies to poison on hit, has the upside of granting increased pack size. Some maps will end up having a lot of rarity, some a lot of pack size, and others will just have a mixture of everything.
バックサイズとウェイストンドロップチャンスが上がってくるのかこれ。
We will of course be reducing the difficulty per modifier to account for this. So, that's your Atlas, maps, and waystones. But what about Breach, Ritual, Pinnacle content, and others of the sort? We're making some changes around this too. The first change is that you'll now be able to invest 2 points into your specific League Atlas trees before having to run the Pinnacle content. There will be a specific objective for each type of content which grants you those points. For example, in the case of Delirium, it's simple. You just need to find and kill one of the bosses in a map, Omniphobia or Kosis. The rest of the points for each content come from the Pinnacle content, but we're making some changes to accessibility here too. Currently, access to most Pinnacle content requires the same key at the easiest and most difficult version of the content. This creates a negative feeling where at lower difficulties, instead of wanting to run the content, you're often better off just selling it to someone who can run it at maximum difficulty. To address this, each content will now drop splinters, which will not form into singular items. Instead of using the singular combined item in the Realm Gate, you can now just bring your splinters. Upon inserting the splinters into the Realm Gate, an interface will appear, allowing you to pick your difficulty, and you'll notice each difficulty has a different entry cost. This means if you want to run easier difficulties, it costs less, which also allows you to run this content much sooner into the endgame. Because these encounters now just require splinters, their corresponding Atlas tree no longer affects the difficulty of them, and has been changed to purely affect the content and maps on the Atlas. The Arbiter of Ash works a bit differently. Instead of requiring splinters, he still needs crisis fragments. We now have only 2 difficulties of the Arbiter. The first, requiring the existing fragments obtained from citadels. The second, Uber Arbiter, requires calamity fragments. These come from Citadel bosses also, but only once you've allocated the maximum number of points in your boss atlas tree, ensuring those citadels are at their highest difficulty level. Since we're talking about pinnacle content, we also felt that the leveling curve in the late game was a bit too steep. We've smoothed this out a bit so that it's easier to get to the mid-90s. We've also added some new in-game unique items. Let's take a look at a couple. Thunderfist is a pair of gloves that grants Crackling Palm, a skill which empowers your unarmed attacks, granting the ability to call down the storms themselves on enemies you hit. Put simply, literally every monster you hit with your unarmed skills will be struck by powerful lightning. Pair this with the aforementioned Hollow Palm technique to embrace your true unarmed prowess in combat. Another unique we're adding is Henekura's Sight. Equip this amulet to be granted the power of the Mother of Death herself. This is reflected by granting you a skill called Foresight. While you have Foresight, dodge roll no longer avoids hits. But instead, being hit while dodge rolling restores you to full life and makes you unable to die for a brief period of time. You'll notice when this does occur, a copy of your character appears and takes the full damage. This is you seeing that future, as if you hadn't been wearing the amulet. Ultimately, your in-game experience should be more streamlined. With new content to find, you'll be able to invest in your Atlas trees sooner, engage with pinnacle content faster, have less FOMO running said pinnacle content, reach higher levels easier, and do all of that while finding many new chase in-game items. Talking about finding items is one thing.
金付きボス
We've taken a step back and looked at some of our crafting systems to make some notable improvements. Let's start with essences, which suffered from an issue where the regular essences were effectively useless and didn't give players the tools or excitement that a crafting system should provide. To alleviate these concerns, essences are being changed in a few ways. Firstly, they're being changed to function like regals and add specific modifiers with specific values, meaning you know exactly what you're going to get. We found that players were often bottlenecked by regal orbs when crafting in the campaign, so this helps to fill that gap, allowing you to better upgrade your items. For example, this Lesser Essence of Flames, which will be able to add a flat amount of fire damage to your magic martial weapons. Secondly, we're adding many more tiers. That Lesser Essence of Flames, for example, has a regular variant and a greater variant too, adding even more fire damage with each upgrade. The intention of this is so that when you find one early on, you don't worry about holding onto it till later to use on a higher level item. You should feel free to use them as they come to get powerful upgrades during the campaign. Lastly, our highest tier of essences, now called Perfect Essences, will function like a Chaos Orb instead of a Regal. So it will replace one of the modifiers on your rare items with the specified mod. Such as this Perfect Essence of Flames. You'll notice this one doesn't just add flat fire damage like the ones before it. The Perfect Essences often give something a bit different, with some opportunities to be pretty damn powerful. There are many different essences.
1個モッドをランダムで消去して確定モッドをつけると。
through to chase specialized ones for in-game. Speaking of in-game, we really wanted to expand our crafting options for late crafting projects. You might have noticed that at in-game, you get way too many transmutes. Wouldn't it be nice if some of those didn't drop, but instead you got something a little more powerful? At higher levels, you can now find Greater Orb of Transmutation and Perfect Orb of Transmutation. These can be used on normal items to upgrade them to magic, ensuring that the modifier generated is of a minimum level. This is similar to how you find higher tier items on the ground, but for crafting. These higher tiers will also exist for Orb of Augmentation, Regal Orb, Exalted Orb, and Chaos Orb, meaning you can get all of the orbs required to take your items from
orb にもランクが3
to
つ
a fully completed rare with guaranteed high tier mods. On top of this,
ハイティアモッドがつくのが確定すると。
make sure there are powerful crafting bases to use them on. Now in in-game, you can start to find exceptional items. These are items that drop at normal rarity, and are perfect for your from-scratch crafting projects.
クオリティ
They can come with
28%。
extra
カレー
quality,
シートし
up
て
to
の価値がどうなるやら
30%, or an additional socket to use your crafting socketables in. And yes, they can be corrupted for yet another socket. You can also get exceptional unique items.
クオリティ
To
30%。
add even further to your crafting arsenal, we've added a whole suite of new omens to ritual content, and removed some of the more unimpactful ones that weren't being used. Some of the new omens include the Omen of the Ancients,
オーメンオブジェ
which
ン
will cause
シ
your
ェン
next
ト
orb of chance to not destroy the item, but generate a random unique of the same class. Or the Omen of Sanctification, which is my new favorite. This will cause your next divine orb used on a rare item to re-roll the values of its modifiers, allowing it to exceed the normal minimum and maximum values, raising the ceiling on the new most powerful rare items in the game. This omen will also cause your item to become sanctified.
サンクティファイした
Cannot be crafted, just like corrupted ones. So consider carefully when you use
数字が 80% から 120% の間で
Another
変
is
動
the
すると。
Omen of Chaotic Monsters, which will cause your next Chaos Orb to re-roll all modifiers on a Waystone, allowing you to fix your maps if you get some modifiers
バッ
that
ク
are
サイ
not
ズが
feasible for your build.
確定でつく。
Besides these examples, there is a huge variety of new
なんか
omens
これは
for
ど
you
う
to
か
discover
な。
in your ritual
なるほど。
encounters. With the release of Act
出た、
4,
ひねこら。
notably taking place in the Kardori
ひ
archipelago,
ねこらズロッ
you'll
ク。
be able to now find a new currency item, Henikora's
まあこれトータの報酬
Henikora,
か。
the Kardori goddess of death, has the power of foresight and is able to see many futures, including the outcome of your next craft. So, imbuing her lock onto an item gives you that same power too. For example, you'll know whether or not to use an exalted orb on your item, as you will know exactly what the outcome is. So, with all these new crafting improvements, it's safe to say you're going to be making some epic items, and not necessarily just ones for yourself. So given that, it's time to talk about a massive
こ
one.
れだな、問題は。
コラさん
うん、ひねこらズロックね。
It's finally here. The moment
ついに来た。
we've all been waiting for. Fully asynchronous trade.
ああ、非同期、完全、みんなが待ち望んでいた。
has morphed from using the forums through to the endgame chat all the way through to using the website.
そうですね、こんな感じで変更されましたね。
AFK。But with each iteration, new problems eventually
はい、
reveal
ついに非同期トレード
themselves.
が。
Requiring you to be in your hideout too much instead of out there killing monsters, or never getting responses from people who are either AFK or just can't be bothered.
ついに。
In order to finally solve this, and this has been a long time coming, we're adding a new system that allows you to buy items from other players without requiring the seller to be present.
草
They can continue farming,
ぬくもらないトレ
killing
ード
monsters, AFK as they please,
ああ、売れると右下に
and
来るんだ。
even be offline.
神ゲーかよ
With the introduction of King's March in Act 4, you will encounter Ange, assistant to Rog in the Meridian Free Traders Company. Over the last 2 decades or so, since Path of Exile 1's storyline, Faustus has handed down his knowledge and expertise to Ange, and she is now ready to take over his business. If you have a hideout unlocked already, you can immediately invite her there. If you don't have a hideout yet, you will need to acquire one. You can do this by completing a quest to defeat one of the bosses inhabiting an island in Act 4.
リターントゥシップってのあったな、
Allowing you
左
to
側
take
に。
a slice of it for yourself, making it your new home and base of operations. Once invited to your hideout, she will now serve as operating your currency exchange, but also serve as the figurehead
Yeah,
in
the manage
the
shop.
trading empire. So, how does this new system work? In the existing trade system, you would list items for sale in premium stash tabs. And then when someone wanted one, you'd have to take it out for yourself and trade it to them. Now, instead of using those, you can give your items to Ange so she can sell them for you. Each item must have a price set. The prices are set using in-game currency items, such as Exalted Orbs or Chaos Orbs. Once a price is set, other players will be able to find the item by searching for it on the trade website. Once a desired
お値
item
打
has
ち
been
品が
found,
触れそう
you can hit a button, which will instantly teleport your
う
character
ん、
in-game
こ
to
れ
them.
はトレードはかどるね。
Then, you can immediately purchase the item. And while there, if you want, browse their other goods, in case there's a good deal someone else hasn't yet discovered. You'll notice that as a buyer, on top of the currency the seller set for the price, it also costs gold to purchase an item, as Ange has bills to pay after all. As a seller, you'll immediately receive a notification when an item of yours is sold, and can also see an effect above Ange in your hideout when she has unclaimed
みん
currency.
なにとって
あっ
は
た
ゴミかもしれないけど
Go talk
君
to
にと
her,
っては貴重
claim
なア
your
イテムが
currency,
買える日が
and continue playing at your leisure. As many people already acquired premium stash tabs for the purpose of the trade system, we wanted to add a way for you to convert your existing tabs to merchants tabs, if you want. You can do that here, on the website, but only if you purchase those tabs before
マーチャント
the
タブ
release
に
of the third
変
edition.
換できるんだ。
To
持
clarify,
ってる
existing
タ
trade
ブを。
system will remain fully intact, so your premium stash tabs will not lose any of their functionality. We just figured people might want to switch over to this new system. We expect a lot of feedback around this new system and are looking forward to trying it out with
死ぬほど余ってるからマーチャントタブに
As we're not
変
able
換
to
しよう。
test internally with an entire thriving economy, there will certainly be some kinks to work out. Based on how the system goes, we will be adding it to Path of Exile 1 when ready, so any of the tabs you purchase will also be usable there later. Next up, we're going to be talking about our new supporter packs. Today, we're launching two new series of supporter packs, the Justice and Trathan Executioner packs. Each tier contains the pack's full face value in points.
トラーさんの処刑人のサポーターパック。
As always, the microtransactions in these packs are purely cosmetic and do not affect your character's power
右が
or
ゴブリンか。
progression in any way.
また色
The
味のない
Justice series of supporter packs contains 6
相変わらず
exclusive
センスがダサい
microtransactions. Claim glory after defeating
ジャスティ
enemies
スサポー
or
ター。
inspire your allies by calling down the Banner of Justice portal. The Sphinx Mystic hideout decoration will identify items for you, displaying them as it does so. This ancient creature has been presented with many items over the eons, so has some strong expressions to make on the quality of your wares. Become a true warrior, worthy of delivering the justice of the eternal gods, with the Apostle of Justice armor set. This armor set also comes with a matching back attachment containing a set of scales to measure your worth.
でもこの変な生物は
With
欲
the
しい
Apostle of Justice
これ
face
から
equipped,
スタッシュって何
the
か言って
Goddess
ま
of
した
Justice herself
聞き
will
逃しちゃ
appear
っ
to
て
decide on a verdict for slain unique.
プレミアムスタッシュタブを
Witness as she decides
マーチャントタ
the
ブ
fate of
に
the slain
コンバートできる、アップグレードできる
foes,
って。
ascends to be amongst the gods, or
マーチャントタ
vanishes
ブ
to
が
the underworld.
自販機用のタブ。
The Griffin fledgling pet will be your courageous companion as you journey throughout Rayclast. Take your place in the skies in the plateau of the gods hideout. This hideout comes with many different sections for setting up your home or base of operations.
水道きれいだな。
In order to travel between them, you simply just need to walk off
と 飛んでる。
like a true
と
eternal
飛ん
god,
だ
you can float between the mountains on the clouds themselves. The Trathan Executioner pack series also contains 6 exclusive microtransactions.
楽しい H を
The Trathan Executioner finisher effect is a brutal display of Trathan might,
汚らしい。
crushing slain unique enemies as
新
they
クラスはない
beneath your heel.
なし。汚ね
As a Trathan Executioner, you're the perfect master for the
この道
ever-hungry
や
carrion.
え。へへへ
It has taken a particular liking to the taste of other pets, and at your command it will swoop down and eviscerate them,
汚ね
proceeding to satisfy its hunger by feeding on their corpse.
食ってる。汚い。
The nobles of the 4 major Trathan houses had their mercenaries, but if their hired hands became notably irritating, they'd have to call in the Trathan Executioners. You can now embrace their methods and become brutality incarnate with the cruel Trathan Executioner
う
armor
ん
set.。
今、ツイッチで見てれば多分、
Trathan Executioner cloak
あれもらえるんじゃないの？フィニッシャーエフェクト。
as you crush the skulls of your enemies
逆に
and
こうい
leave
う
a
のの
trail
方
of
が
blood
欲しくな
behind
る
you as you build up a kill streak. Or use the alternate variant to simply put a skeleton on your back. Be bathed in blood as you mutilate monsters with the cruel Trathan
悔しいけど
Executioner
角マン
character
トは
effect.
欲しい
The swirling blood increases in volume as your spree of slaughter continues.
円安が憎い。
Both this effect and the cloak use the same kill streak for tracking how much blood is shown. After a long and tiring day of executions, enjoy a relaxing game of dice with the Goblin Gambler's Hideout decoration. They'll definitely be playing fair, right?
ギャンブラーなだけあってあれなんだ。ギャンブル。
Pulverizer map device brings a horrid efficiency to punishing the damned of Trathus. Each map you open will execute the next victims. This map device in its true ruthlessness tracks the total number of monsters killed, your kills per second, and your largest kill streak up to the point of the map being completed.
ああ、キルパーセカンドが出るんだ。
Displayed on a leaderboard, so you can take a measure of you and your friends' violence at the end of each map.
ああ。
Additionally, any microtransactions from the supporter packs will be made available for use in Path of Exile 1. That's enough about cosmetics. Let's get into the Q&A. But firstly,
これで一旦あれか、一通り。
for your ongoing support. We're just about to start the Q&A with Ziggy D. Afterwards, at 11 AM NZ time, or 4 PM Pacific, we'll post Path of Exile 2, the Third Edict's patch notes. With the release at the end of next week, our community team will be posting crucial information you need for the release. Keep an eye on the news.
なるほど。
Today,
アビ
and
ス
checking。out our latest developments. We're looking forward to seeing your experiences with Act 4 and its new bosses, fighting the Abyssal, trying new builds, and crafting new items. We'll begin the Q&A shortly, so please get your questions ready.
なんだかんだ情報的には期待上回ってくれた印象。
う
文字も
ん。
自由につけれるようになったんだ。
そう。ポジェムもまあいろいろ増えたしね。早口なんだよな、この人たち。特にジョナサン、もともと聞き取りにくい上に、早口だから。ああ、なるほどね。だいぶ眠い。なんか音声おかしくね、ジギリ。
操作レス調整ないのね。
操作レスはなかったね。
一旦お疲れ様でした。感謝です。
お疲れ様でした。あれ、ツイッチドロップってみんなもらえてんのかな、ちゃんと。どうなんだろう。
英語魔を感謝。GD ウルバリンに似てる。もらえました。
あ、もらえた。よかったよかった。そう、アビスでベールモットね。まさかの。あと、ベールド。おっと。
今ツイッチつけたからあと45分頑張って。
嘘でしょ。
おはようございます。これもう終わりそうな感じ。
ミコさんおはようございます。うん。発表は終わったね。あれっつうかなんかこれ音声おかしくね？これ俺だけ？ああ、そっか。もう Q&A になった。
ここからは仕組み耐久の時間か。
ああ、音声直った。向こうの問題だな。なんかジョナサン早口すぎんだって。
ネムネムは万問かわい。
聞き取れない。
オタクは早口。
オタクは早口なんだよね、まさに。ほんとそう。まあ、クラス変更点はまあシステム変更だよね、でかかったのは今回。
Things like that were just like because we're really trying to be honest about like here are the real issues.
And the reason it ends up being a bit nerve-wracking is because we had a goal to fix all of it, and we didn't get to fix. We aren't fixing literally everything. We're fixing almost a lot. You know, and I'm sure a few new problems introduced here and there.
これ GTD の Q&A はあれだな。ちょっと聞いてたら多分相当時間かかるんだよな。 1時間以上あるよね。前もそうだったしね。
Yeah, so we'll kind of discuss around your vision and stuff for Endgame soon as well, so that you can say, give people some reassurance about like where you want to go with that. But we should also mention just the other elephant in the room, or the lack of the elephant in the room with the druid. No elephant form, but the joke kind of works. So it seemed that druid has been uniquely challenging to get shipped. It's been something you've been working on for a while now, and just getting it right. What has been the challenge with druid and getting it out?
Well, I mean, okay, so we
またスター
started
ター混沌
believing
と
that
し
we
そ
were
う
going to have druid in this version. And that was
うん、どうなるのかな。
of development that we were that we had here, and obviously like a bunch of work had gone on before that as well. But at some point we realized, like, you know, that we don't want to have the mistake that we effectively had with 020, where like we put a huge amount of effort into
ジョナさん、Apple Watch してる。
fix like all of the concerns that people had outside of that, right? Because obviously the same resources go into making a new
アマゾ
class
ネ
as
ス
go
ちゃん
into
がやっ
balancing
と
the old
雷
ones
捨
and
て
making
れ
all
そう
that
で
stuff,
よ
right?
か
So
った
if we don't have the balance in like a good place, it kind of feels a bit bad to like
氷と火がね、だいぶ強化されるからね、全体的に。
so then what that meant was at some point we're like, okay, since we don't believe we can get both the class and all these other balance changes we want to make in at the same time, it's actually better to cut the class and then have the you know the balance changes instead. So that's what we ended up doing, and obviously it was like a really hard thing to cut because obviously like, you're going to have another one without a class, like it feels really terrible. But you know, we've got the philosophy now, like we have to make sure that we're in the release month that we say we're going to be in.
毒はシステム的にはあんまり変わんないけど、まあスキルは調整されてる
And I mean, look,
Point
there's
it.
so much stuff that was cut. Like even as large as it is, like you know, there's like Ascendancies and all sorts of stuff that was gonna be there, and you know, we'll get to it. But yeah, more
毒
important
の
to
ス
just
キ
make
ル
sure
だい
that
ぶ
people
調
are
整
happy
は
with
言
the
ってたよ
stuff
ね
that's in, and make sure all those changes
Mm.
are great, and you know, make sure obviously you've got answers for stuff, right?
I imagine for druid, it's
何してるか全くわからなかったけど
shifting, getting it
タイムレスジュエル。
It's a huge deal. It's hard. Like there's so much animation stuff that has to go into making
Abyssal.
deal, right? So yeah, it's like but we'll get there. Like I don't think we're that far away from it now. So you know, it's just a question of prioritization.
Yeah, it seems like it is probably the hardest class of all. Then
Might be, yeah.
I think it will be.
Yeah.
you're getting a bit more ambitious as you go with each
That is
class
true.
too, which
That
is
is true. Every class is a step
Not
up from
helping.
the last in terms of that. Yeah.
yes. So I guess on that note, do you have a vision for who's next?
ちぎり暑くねえのかって思ったけど、ニュージーランド南半球だから冬か、向こうは。
Well, I've always said that it would be criminal to go into full release without having swords. So you know that's
Yes.
that's
It's
kind
a
of a
little
pretty
bit
glaring.
it's a little bit criminal to get this far without
Yeah,
having
to be
swords.
honest, it is. Yeah. So I'd say that
It is
would be.
weird when you think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
so
So
Real weird.
unusual.
It is real weird.
So that would be an obvious candidate. Is making sure that we've got
So
that.
that people can infer from that some sort of duelist or something, most likely being the sword one.
10リーグがスワローカス過ぎたしパスパよりアマゾンでやる方が強いレベルだったので
パスパは変更なさそうだね。あ、でもどうなんだろう。今回発表してないだけで、パッチノートでは詳細出てくるから。
Talk about kind of what you have done. We'll jump into Endgame first, since I know people, the towers and stuff have been a hot topic for people. So we'll talk about the Endgame.
朝からやっ
This
とったの
wasn't
か。
ostensibly
おは
supposed
よ
to
う。
be an Endgame.
おはよう、アビスさんいらっしゃい。
But
10度とかだよ。
seems
伊達に
like
プレイヤー
スコスコサーモンさんいらっしゃい。
投げてた感じじゃ
Yeah,
な
I
い
mean, well, part of that is because we
そうだよね。南半球だもんね。寒いよな、向こうは。
本気心理行き過ぎちゃいますか
That obviously adds quite a lot, but we did want to make sure that we weren't just being like, okay, so we're adding a bunch of bosses. Like we wanted to make sure
音声上げたな、向こ
epic
う。
ones that we added to the campaign have some way, some new mechanic for them on the Atlas as well. So that's why we had those
ジョナサンの南半球
various
はあんま
mechanics
ス
of,
ケ
you
ベ
know,
じゃ
like
な
the
さそう
sandstone and stuff. Like, you know, those
下
kind of,
地はちょっといらないかな。
the feeling of exploration to have more of that stuff. And then, of course, you know, once you got that, you start getting into, okay, well, what rewards is it going to drop? You know, then we started to think we need a new category of rewards that these things can have. And that's, you know, we started to think about the lineage supports and that kind of stuff. So it just ended up kind of adding up to quite a bit in the end. But yeah, it isn't like kind of like the big end game change that we wanted to do. Like we had a design for that, but we just kind of haven't quite got to it. So, but it still ends up being quite a lot. And one of the big things that it also, I think, will help bridge is the kind of
2人で非対称
mid-end
には仕組んでる
part.
せい
You
で
know,
ニ
like
コ
that,
イチボ
that's
ス
still
みたい。
ニコイチボス。
but yeah, it adds quite a lot there because, you know, you're seeing
なんかニコイチボス今回の追加多いからね。
the problem there is you
ミニアクト1とミニアクト3もかな、多分。
片方倒すと強化される。
そうそうそう。できるだけ同時に倒さないといけないとかね。ガレン。
telling you where to go, what to do, have those goals where you're like, I want to do this next and this next, as opposed to like, I could do this or this or this. It's nice to have those, but it's nice to also have the things kind of directing you. This is exactly what I want to do. The boss I want to get to. So it's kind of just
前回もそうだったの。前々回もそうだったよ。
We have a huge plan, but again, it's like, yeah, we need to you got this working on a campaign, you've got working on the end game, and you've got all these like, how do you juggle all of these things? It's brutally difficult, and you end up having to think. So I would expect, you know, next expansion to be way more end game centric in terms of fixing all of this, because
一応まあマナー的なあれらしい。
We did do some stuff with what we had, so like that splinter change I think is going to be quite a big one. Like it doesn't look like much from what we showed, but what it does mean is that you've got pinnacle fights earlier in your in the experience, and of course you've got the thing where you know, we're making it make more sense with regard to the
あれ火がカオスじゃなかった？
by having it so that it's cheaper to get
ファイヤーをカオスにするって。
that helps quite a lot, and I think that'll improve things quite a lot even just from that. So yeah, like
of course you got the league now in game as
yep,
well.
and of course there's a league there too.
You know, the Wisps were Wisps, sure, wasn't really a league. It's kind of just like, wasn't, you know, not what we've done before. And a lot of people in PoE2 may not really even know what a league is. I mean, we kind of had it with Dawn of the Hunt, but yeah, I mean, having Abyss in every single area, there are Abyssal icons you can find on the map. You can't add them because
しかも火のエフェクトが紫になるというおまけ付き。
and you have, you know, different the waystone crafting and stuff like that. So there's a lot of end game just added by the league's existence as well.
Plus a lot more combination of the league mechanics with other mechanics as well, which is something that I'm always keen for with leagues. Is like have a bit more interaction.
Yeah, you were telling me that you had specifically made it so that Abyss would have specific interactions with basically everything else.
For sure.
Like if
Waystone.
you get a special boss based on the Rogue Exile. So that's rather interesting extra combination stuff there. It is interesting because this is a league mechanic. It's in every zone. It's guaranteed. That's part of a league mechanic. But does this also have like Atlas tree integration in the way that it would later on as it becomes like a core element?
純粋に多分ファイヤーがそもそもケイオス 100% コンバートだから。イグナイトどうなんだろう。イグナイトも全部ケイオスドットになるのかな。
We see what changes we want to make. Sometimes we add it to the core game immediately, sometimes later. And then we add it to the tree and decide how we want to invest into all the different things. But we try and have the meta progression, so to speak, of a league within the leagues itself, and not connected to the like core tree. Because you could have a separate tree. It is a thing you could do. But in this case, it comes in the form of the waystone crafting.
You did an experiment with that recently, part of Exile 1, doing that in a league, and you didn't exactly like the result.
Different because it's not a separate tree, and that was during Necropolis, yes, and it felt like because it's in every area, you have to take it. So that didn't work. We're not going to repeat that mistake. It could be a separate tree, but I just did it through the waystone crafting stuff instead, and you can invest in the Abyss and juice the Abyss that way. And
I mean, we'll see how we fold it all in as we go into the 040 though. Like that'll be an interesting one.
All right. Well, one of the kind of like, I guess, endgame issues that I've identified in the past was kind of how the Atlas trees worked and progressed and what they afforded, and it felt very top heavy. Like you had to beat the boss to get points to just scale.
Well, that's what I'm talking about with the lack of mid game stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's changed now though. Like the league mechanics don't scale difficulty of bosses at all. They're just about what the content is in maps.
Yeah, and you get the points way earlier. So
we made some changes to that actually as well since last night. And thus it wasn't in the live stream accurately. It was talking about how you have to complete specific objectives like boss and whatnot to get your points. It's actually just now you follow the quest line, and there's a point in where you get the tablet, which is after you find the league and you kill the, just do a delirium, you successfully go back and get a tablet. You're also going to get the first 2 points there. Now I wanted to change it so that you can get like, if we have 8 points, you get 4 points before the pinnacles and 4 points from the pinnacles. Right now it's 2 and 6.
でも弱いかもよ。
We're still looking at this just because we made a change last night.
期待させといてね、裏切るからね、ジョナさんは。
This a little bit more. So it's even the first 2 points come even sooner and even more obviously. Like you don't have to RNG into finding a boss in order to get those first 2 points now, which was mentioned there. No longer going to be the case.
But yeah, we just want to really make sure we're smoothing that progression through.
あとあれか、アビター・オブ・アッシュ。
Like was you've got this like kind of world map. It seems to
は
be
いの
the recent updates you did.
そういやな、
最低者。
よかったですよね。
Forwards in that regard. There was
ナーフの話はここで出さないでしょう。
俺も
基本的に。
いよいよ毒が回ってきたなって言ってるから、OE2 でも強くなって。
You see that next unique map.
ウーバーハイの最低者オプションがなんか
Mid-game issue you were talking about. Is that kind of the goal? Is to make
オプション
分かったでし
追加。
れっとやるはず。
そうそうパッチノートの方で出すでしょ。こっちで出さず。
But yeah, like so we definitely appreciate the concern with
さ
towers
すがに
being
雷
you've got this
槍は
tension
お仕置
between
き来るやろ
having
な。
to turtle in one location versus
まああの辺は
so
ね
that's something that we need to look into addressing. But I don't want to kind of like talk explicitly about
まあ
exactly what we're going to do here,
雷槍
just
でしょ。
because you know there's like obviously a lot in flux there still. But yeah, it's something that we understand the problem. I would say. Like I would understand that there's an issue, and so yeah, we will be addressing that a bit later.
Yes, the brand name of towers seems somewhat marred currently.
す
Like
みません。
it seems like
ま
no
だジョナの
matter
手
what
の
you
内
do
に
with
慣れ
them,
てな
there's
く
going
て
to be some sort of
わかんない
because we have the bad association with it.
That is
going on.
a concern, but I suspect that we'll still want to keep them at least for just vision. Like even if we remove
Yeah.
the mechanic
Yeah.
and do other stuff, like we'll just keep them there. So I still think it's fun to just find a tower just to get a circle of vision around it.
Yeah.
So I don't think
For
that's the
sure.
part that people are unhappy about with them. So therefore, it'd be fine to keep that and move like other power sources and other things that you can do somewhere else.
And I even like the empowering the maps because that is an element of control. Which
じ
is
ょない
another thing
感じ
people
だから
I
ショ
mean,
アだけ
I
は
still
諦め
want
てくれんか。
something that does that. I just
Yeah.
think that it needs to work differently than how it works.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah,
guess
yeah.
the issue seems to come down to, from what I see, and maybe
パッチノート
chat
って
might
いつ
have
出
other
るん
things
だ
that
ろ
they
う。
mention about their issues with towers, but the issue
いつ出んだろうね。
about that feeling that
2、3日前じゃない？
be stacking tower mechanics on top of other stuff, and if you're not kind of bringing all those things together, then it feels like you're
Well,
wasting time.
my fundamental issue with them is the way that you know that something sucks before you even run it, and that's always bad.
Yeah.
Like effectively, it's like okay, like if you're running maps that don't have a tower around them, you're like okay, well I know this is bad, or and
Yeah.
so I feel bad because like
スク
I
リー
just
ン
have
ト
to
っ
get
て
to the
ひ
next
らめし
tower,
確
and
定
then
スタンです
like
か？
when you've done
確定スタン
one tower,
確定
you
ヘ
know
ビー
that
スタ
two
ン
tower overlapping is a thing, then you're like okay, well I feel bad running a one tower overlap thing when I know that two tower stuff is a thing as well. So there's just this problem of like you know that it sucks beforehand, and I think that's never a good thing. Like
Yeah.
it's actually the
なんか転んでたよね。
opposite of the action
ヘビー
RPG
なんだ。
philosophy of like the reason you have random drops is because like you know any monster could be the one that drops the next thing.
Exactly.
And if you don't have that, then it's like you feel bad for playing the content because you know it's not the best already. So you need that like random element more. So yeah, there needs to be some adjustment to make that better.
Yeah. Do you think that's like bringing up what the base map experience can be in terms of its upper potential, like adding more
I don't-
interesting confluence of variants?
I mean, look, I always like more interesting combinations of stuff to happen, but I don't necessarily think that the core problem is like lack of ability to juice things.
Yeah.
Like I think the core problem is to do with the fact that like you don't like you know when it already sucks, as I said. Like it's just kind of like that thing there. So we need to sort of like there will need to be some approach to solving the like making it more controllable, like you know more deterministic in some way, like you know just something along those lines so that you can so that you don't have this feeling of like because of you know because of a thing I can already see that sucks. That this experience is going to be worse than what I'm hoping for.
So, somewhat related to this, another thing I see brought up all the time is being able to kind of choose what map you're doing and just being able to exert more elements of control. I saw a post in chat just there that was like the idea of being able to kind of erect a tower where you want it,
Right.
rather. Like, is this element of like being able to control, choose your maps a little bit more, or have a bit more influence on what's happening?
So I think having control over what content is there is good, but I don't know that I want to
ビ
lose
ルドメ
the
ーカー
fact
ス
that
プ
you
リン
still
トで悪いことしようって
have
みん
the
な
atlas
考えてそ
fundamentally
う。
where you like the actual map areas you get are random, and part of the reason for that is that it gives us a lot of opportunities to do interesting things with
ダメだ、ジョナさんの言葉が全然頭に入ってこない。
things that they drop and other stuff like that. Like there's a lot of that sort of stuff that's like quite nice.
今まさにマップのタワーの
マルチプレイではめ。
たくさんあるところしか価値がないっていうのを について話をしてんだけど。
We want to do a lot more as well on the Atlas, like just more stuff to find. Like when we get to 040, I really want it to be that, like, you know, you really feel like there's just cool stuff in every map that you might be finding that's like, you know, that's way more interesting. And as I said, that stuff, the problem is if you have full control over literally being able to run the same map every single time, like the same like base area, it means that you don't have the ability to say, okay, well this map can randomly have this thing that's just like really awesome that, you know, always drops a unique or something like that, because then you're just going to run that map over and over and over. So I still like some ability to have to find the good stuff in the Atlas, but we just need more control over what mechanics you can spawn there and that kind of stuff, and like not having the experience of like, if I didn't get this exact overlap, then I have this bad experience.
And that's where exploration actually comes from as well, is having some element of not having that control as well. So maybe it is the case more of just juicing up that exploration aspect.
ジューシーリチュアル作ってファームしてたけどそんなに面倒じゃなかったが評判悪いね。
The new maps and the mechanics and things scattered in the zones as well. So it seems like there's a fair bit more going on.
The main point, like we did what we could, 100%. And you know, 040 expect a lot more improvements there. But again, we focus more on everything else. There's a, you know, an insane amount of content there. You know.
まあなんか結局コストをかけてジューシーファームをしたいって思っても、そこのタワーの付近を使い潰しちゃうと、またそういうところを探すまでに虚無なファームを続けてマップ進まないといけないっていうところがね。
Maybe they had tapped out before then, so there's a good bit of extra stuff to explore there, maybe with this one. We'll loop back around to Endgame if people have more questions that they post and that we pull from the chat. But we'll move on to the Act 4 and the interludes, because that's a pretty big thing. Obviously, getting rid of.
やばい、今のタワー周りの話、全然わかんなかったな。
思いますけど、個人的にはPoEにはただマップ回してるだけで楽しくはありました。
How to do that? How to add Act 4 without having to add the rest of the acts all at once or do something.
まあスプリントが増えてマップ走り回るのがだいぶ楽になればまた感覚は変わるとは思うけどね。
So there was certainly some skepticism when I first proposed this about like how can we possibly do that. But basically the main thing there was that like okay so the interludes are not
ダメだわもうなんか
in terms of like you know like each one of them is like you know a straight line like you're going from here to here. There's no like you know
全然英語が頭に入ってこない。
ジ
ョナサン早口すぎ。
all of that stuff we can use in Endgame as well. So that means we're not kind of wasting any of the arts. The only thing we're really wasting is like a kind of like a you know a little bit of like storyline structure around it. But as I said, it's not nearly the same level of like narrative structure as what you get in like a full act. And that's something that
まあ
ultimately what we
ね。
realize is to get from the end of Act 4 to the Endgame level, all you need is like 20
やばい、
areas
腹痛い。
to kind of to bridge that gap. And so that means that I was
まあ
like, you know
こ
what,
っ
like
から先はあれだな。
I reckon
で
we
も
can do it if we're like,
GDT
you
の
know,
この Q&A は
mechanics of maps,
全然翻訳ができそうにない。
art reuse, that kind of stuff. Like we can find a way to make something pretty quick, and it won't necessarily hold up for like years and years.
バカ
But it will certainly be good enough for you know just like
さすがにあれ
for
か。
a relatively
虚無っ
short
てる
period
時
of
間に
time.
大なる計
And
画
by
で
the
ぶっ
time you
飛
get
ば
to
し
that
た
point
方が
anyway,
効
like
率
you're
良い
usually
と思
pretty
ってる
fast
け
as a
どみん
character.
な
You're
し
like
ないの
rushing
かな
through you know just to get to Endgame. So I think that that'll end up being like pretty damn good
今
for
日
the
の動
time
画で
being.
出
Plus
た
you
から
know new bosses,
混
new
沌
stuff to
コンバー
experience.
トよ
Like
く読んでみたら
you know
ちゃんと
in
貼
my
ったダ
opinion
メ
it
ー
was
ジ
a
も混
no-brainer
沌
to do
変
it
換でし
compared
たね
to
あ、もう動
something
画
that
出
was
て
like
るんだ。
repeat Act 1 and 2 again or something weird like that. Like that just wouldn't have been good. And we really wanted to get rid of Crawl. I mean, like we never wanted Crawl to exist, right? It existed as a compromise. So
ふえ、やばい、レブイはこれ。ダメだ。
something we were very keen to do.
よし。もうちょっとまたこれは多分まだ長いだろうし。後でまた動画で出たら見てみるか。で、まあでも今日中にもう翻訳出す人いそうだしな。まあ今日はこの辺で終わりにするか。
オツです。
はい。眠いね。皆さんもお疲れ様でございました。YouTube の方はもしまだの方はぜひチャンネル登録しといてください。よろしくお願いします。 はい、お疲れ様でした。おやすみなさいませ。まあちょっと来週、再来週、楽しみですね。9日後。まあまた、なんか動画を出すか配信するかでお会いしましょう。それでは皆様お疲れ様でございました。おやすみなさいませ。
You can do those in
Yep,
any
you do
order.
them in any
You
order
can
you
do them
like.
in any order when you complete one or part.